Hey, what's up, everybody? BDO44 coming at you another video. All right, so information on James Harden. He's going to be opting into his $35 million contract, and then from there, they're going to be looking for sign and trade scenarios. Now, $35 million for James Harden actually ain't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be. Now, whether or not that contract balloons into something bigger than that later on, I'm not knowledgeable. But for this upcoming season, I would not be opposed to paying James Harden $35 million. I really wouldn't. And the reason why is because I have tempered expectations about what it is that I can do with him. And I think as a result, I would want exactly what I'm going to get from him. And then I'm going to get it at an elite level. And that is playmaking, good free throw shooting, the ability to hit open shots, the ability to create his own shots, even though it's not at the same level. He can still do it. But the most important thing I'm getting out of him is elite playmaking and ridiculous amounts of pressure that he's going to put on defenses to guard him. And that's going to help for everybody else around him. If James Harden is going to go to a team like the Houston Rockets, of course I hate it. I literally hate it because you're going to be removing some of those kids. But if you remove the right ones and leave the right ones, you really do have a nice looking team that he can play off of to a degree. Problem is, some of the better ones that you want to keep are probably the ones you don't want to keep for him. I don't know that Amen Thompson and James Harden can play with one another. That's essentially what I'm saying to you. I don't know that they can. I know that Amen Thompson can do a lot of things with the ball in his hands. I don't know he can do a whole lot without him. James Harden can do a lot with the ball in his hands. I don't think he wants to play without it. So I wouldn't assume Porter and James Harden are a good fit, especially defensively. That's definitely not the case. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't mind him playing with Sengun and Smith. Cam Whitmore, I don't hate it, I guess, but the problem is the guard situation. You bringing in James Harden, you don't necessarily need some of the guards that you got. They're probably not what's best for you. You probably need something else. So that's kind of how I'm looking at that. I just don't know what type of defensive guard or forward I'm going to put next to James Harden. And if James Harden is in fact going to Houston, which I have in my mind he's going, that's the move. Are they moving Green? Not me. I'm not moving Jalen Green. Leave that to somebody else. And see, that's what it becomes like. Am I moving Terry Eason? I'm not moving Terry Eason. You move Terry Eason. I ain't moving Terry. See, this that type of thing when it comes to the Houston Rockets as it pertains to myself. I just know that those are not players you want to trade. You don't want to trade none of them dudes. None of those starting five and the 6th and 7th man you don't want to trade on the Houston Rockets. But I think Tillman Fertitta is hell-bent on doing that, so that's going to be tricky. If the Philadelphia 76ers are, in fact, going to trade James Harden to the Houston Rockets, they're going to be taking back a very good return with some pieces that I think Joel Embiid is going to love playing with. And so that's what I got to say about that. I don't know if there are other suitors for James Harden. There may be from other suitors. I don't think it's crazy to think the LA Clippers might be a good suitor for him. Swap one and bag one of those forwards for him. Kawhi or PG, one of them. And then I'm swapping the other one for another piece, and I'm going to redo the Clippers all entirely. That's how I would do it. But I don't think anybody's thinking about that, and I don't think James Harden's looking at that as a upgrade from where he's at all. But it's what I'm doing. Who would put Dame Lillard and James Harden together and expect anything great? Not me, but you know, it's the type of things that could cross your mind when you're considering sign and trade situations, trying to get into a win now situation where the team is looking to get older, and that's this Portland. It's like, it ain't a good fit at all. In Cleveland, maybe since they got Garland on the trade block, maybe you try to do something like that, but I think it defeats the purpose for Cleveland trading a star for a star. They need to get flexible, not bring in a replacement for Garland that's older. That's not something that I think is going to make sense to anybody. So ignore that thought. But like, these are the type of things that you think about. Like, where's James going? Is he going to Miami? Since they are not maybe going to be able to get Dame, will they give up that package for James? I don't know that Miami values James the way they do Dame. I don't. That's a different level, believe it or not, right now. Unless James plays his way back up to that level, but that's not where he's at. So I don't see Miami saying yes to that. The Magic got cap space, but why would they want James Harden? They just drafted Anthony Black and Jett Howard. And that's another thing. They got cap space, but you don't hear them rumored to do anything. Unlike the Rockets, who have the same stuff going on, including the cap space and the young kids, but are rumored to get everybody superstar. There's a reason for that. There's a reason for that, Houston. You don't see Orlando doing this. You hear them going after Fred VanVleet? Nah. No. Why? Because they know they need to make sure that the kids they got are paid. They don't need to be spending money on free agents and stuff like that. That stuff ain't nothing when you got a bunch of kids like the Rockets and the Orlando do. Anyway, so that's what I'm looking at there. Yeah, man. I just want to see what happens with some of these guys. I'm curious to see what happens with Jeremy Grant. Is he going to stay in Portland? Is that contingent on Dame being a part of the team? If not, he can go somewhere and switch things up. He could go to a team and really make noise. I don't quite have in my mind who would take him, what situation would be best. I know he started his career in Philadelphia. They're trying to move Tobias Harris. I would be trying to shop him for Tobias Harris. I don't think Portland wants Tobias Harris, but that's the type of thing I want to do if I'm Philly. You know, that kind of thing. Maybe. If you're moving on from James Harden, you probably don't need to move on from Tobias Harris as much. Because in theory, you're going to swap contracts, but probably bring yourself back more flexible contracts, for which it'll be easier to keep the flexibility that having that contract would provide you. And given the fact that Tobias Harris and Joel Embiid are on the same timeline, I'm not so sure Philly actually wants to move on from that timeline in any way, just because James out. And that's why I would probably try to trade James for Paul George or for something like that. Maybe try to shop him to a team like, I don't know. I had the wrong team in mind, but you get the point. Brooklyn, maybe. I don't know. Who knows? But these are the type of things that cross your mind when you're considering what's going on with James Harden. Of course, Brooklyn would be, I don't see that happening, but you get the point where I'm trying to go with this. It's not that the market is thin for James Harden at $35 million. I don't think it is. I actually think that's a fair price for a star like that. If Dame was on a contract like that, I'd want him on my team too. But he's on a contract double that, so 35 ain't bad. And I remember when James Harden took that pay cut, we were like, you know what? That's pretty good for a guy who was MVPs, several MVP runner-ups. You know, has broken some records and stuff like that, had some astronomical lines in his career. That's not a bad look for him at this stage in his career, even though he's fallen off. He hasn't fallen off below 35, in my opinion. He really hasn't. So that's an affordable deal. I'm not saying I want it as a Laker fan, because that's not the piece. But just in general, if I'm trying to boost my situation and I got $35 million hanging around, bringing James Harden in is not a bad idea. If you're a team like Sacramento or something like that and you got some money for that, you were trying to go after Bradley Beal's contract, James Harden's an upgrade in every way in that way. I like James Harden better than Bradley Beal today, and he's on a better contract. So if you were going after that, why not go after James Harden? I don't see a reason not to be honest with you, if I'm them. Sacramento, they could definitely use James Harden. He's from California, albeit down here in LA, but still, trust me, if I'm from Cali, Sacramento's not a hard place for me to live. Not really. It ain't no different than Lancaster or something. You know, it ain't that difficult for us. So that's the kind of thing I'm looking at. If I'm James Harden, I'm saying that's a contender. Whose spot am I taking? Kevin Huerter? That's an upgrade. I'm an upgrade from Kevin Huerter. I love Kevin Huerter's game, but James Harden's, you're going to feel great about that. And then they lighten the beam, so the whole gimmick makes sense. I like James Harden in Houston. Low-key, next to De'Aaron Fox. Defense ain't all there, but, you know what I mean? I can upgrade a couple of guards, finally move on from... I don't want to move on from Davion Mitchell. No, not if I'm bringing in James Harden. Hell no, I ain't moving on from Davion Mitchell. But you get the point. It's one of them situations where it's like, I want James Harden. If I'm James Harden, I want to go to a contender. Send me to Utah. Send me to Sacramento. Send me to go play with Jokic, even though nobody's breaking up their team. This is where I want to be. I don't want to toy around. I want a championship right now. I don't have one, and I still feel like I got enough in the tank to really help a superstar get over the hump. So send me somewhere where the superstar is at. If Kyrie don't re-sign with Dallas, send me to Dallas. If I'm James Harden, I'm saying that's what he needs to be doing. Going to a contender, man. I don't think the Lakers are the spot for him at $35 million. It's not. But, like, in a nutshell, that's exactly what I want. I want to go to a contender, play with some dudes that I could play with, who are young enough to keep up with the field, but also winning enough for me to go after that championship. And that's why Miami don't look like the greatest spot for James Harden, because they just don't have the youthfulness around him. It will more so expose his weaknesses, and I don't think he's a Heat culture kind of guy. I don't. So I wouldn't send him there, even though they would be in the mix to get somebody like Dame. Like I said, that's not the best space for James, in my opinion. Not necessarily. What else? You can think out the box and start looking at some of these teams that are starting to gather talent together that maybe don't have the reputation, but if you get a James Harden, they could put them over the top. That's another way to look at it, but that's just so risky. You want to go to Indiana, take a bag from Indy, yeah, you may put them over the top, but they may also just be Indiana, which you own it. So that's always a risk for a guy like him. Then you got dead-in-the-water teams like Chicago who would love to trade his contract for Zach LaVine, but what the hell are they going to do? They ain't going to do nothing. That kind of thing. So it's like, nah, I don't want to do that if I'm Chicago necessarily. I don't want to bring him in as a lateral move no matter what. So I just canvassed the lead. Like, Minnesota ain't got the opportunity for him, nor would he be playing with anybody over there. Boston's all locked up in the money situation, not happening. New York probably would love to bring in a guard, but I don't know that they're dreaming about giving up picks for James Harden in New York. Absolutely not. Not in my mind, they're not. So it's like the market is kind of thin for James, believe it or not. They can look for sign and trade teams. Maybe there's somebody I'm not thinking about. But I don't know who's going to be itching to take him on. I don't know. You always look at Wembanyama, say, does somebody want to bring a starter Wembanyama? But I don't think James Harden's a Spur guy. They got their own culture down there, and he don't fit it in my mind. So that's a whole nother thing. But still a bunch of teams I didn't mention, but the point is I don't really see too much for him. Golden State, I mean, like, they're going to trade him for Chris Paul's contract. I mean, if I could do it, I'd do it. If I'm Golden State, if I could do that, I would do that. But why in the hell would Philly do that other than just waive the contract? And then have free cap space to sign what if you're Philly? That's not the return you want. You can go to a bad team like Washington, play with Jordan Poole. That doesn't even make any sense. You look at them two contracts together and they're going to win like 20 games together. You would never even consider that. So I'm looking at Utah. Utah has the package. If they want to put some stuff together, they can make that work without feeling nothing. The flexibility should be something that Philly wants from Utah. Right? Utah's timeline fits James Harden. They need a point guard, facilitating point guard like James Harden. It's the only thing they don't have. Yeah, I like him at Utah. I'm going to take a package of a bunch of people they don't want. Give me Agbaji, since you got all kinds of stuff in front of them. Give me Agbaji. Give me Taylor Hendricks, because you don't need Taylor Hendricks with that Collins contract, and I'm not taking that Collins contract if I'm Philly. You're not giving me Markkanen, and I'm giving you James Harden, so I'm going to definitely take back Taylor Hendricks, of whom you cannot use properly. You know what I'm saying? Give me Chris Dunn or something like that. I'm just going to take a handful of what you have, Utah, and I'm going to leave you with plenty. And in that situation, you would be getting back James Harden on a $35 million contract, which I think is affordable for you. I'll take back Young Bull, that kind of thing if I'm Philly. Take back some stuff, but definitely Agbaji. I know you're not going to use him properly. Leaving you with THT contract, I'm not taking that. Y'all love him anyway, so it's going to work just fine. THT, Markkanen, I'm not taking Kessler, even though to get James Harden I'd try. I'm not going to do that. But Taylor Hendricks, you coming up off of. I'm sending him to Philly. I'm taking Taylor Hendricks. You ain't doing nothing with Taylor Hendricks anyway. He's coming in the James Harden trade if I got to say so about it. And, yeah, man, look, I would shop that Collins contract. Forget shopping Taylor Hendricks. Get that thing as quickly off of you as you got it, Utah. You don't want that thing. Nobody wants that thing. Get that out of there. You don't have the situation there for it anyway. All right. Getting these phone calls left and right. So I'm going to cut these videos off every time I do. But I appreciate for you guys watching BDF44. And I'm out.